And it's like, to kind of like hear like you have nobody to answer to, it kind of like puts you in a position where you can think like, well, if I ain't got nobody to answer to, it's like I can do whatever the hell I want to do.
What makes you think I have nobody to answer to?
Whatever comes to my mind, I could just do it.
We have each other.
Why would I care about your feelings, or why should you care about my feelings? You know what I'm saying?
Well, because we have each other to answer to in a culture, and it's not just about, we are a species that live together. You know, with one, we're not like great white sharks that swim around all by themselves. We actually have to get along with each other, because that's the kind of being that we are as people. We're social. And we survive because we form these social contracts with each other. You know, you have friends, you have family, you have coworkers, and then you have the community at large. It all scales up. So we all have to answer to each other. And, you know, if you look at what happens with people who think like what you're suggesting, well, I can just go and do whatever I want. I can go and do bad stuff and it doesn't matter. And what do they find usually happens to them? They get picked up by the cops, get arrested, go to jail. You know, most people, it's natural for us to get along. It's, you know, a lot of people talk about, well, what could I do, what could I not do, depending on what I believe or what. But really, when you get right down to it, this whole idea that morals simply come from following authority doesn't really work, because if that were the case, if it were simply about, well, this is only right and wrong because there's a God or an ultimate authority that says it's right or wrong, then think about it. If that ultimate authority or God or what have you one day said, well, I declare it to be morally right and for everyone to kill their own children, and so I command you to do this, well, would it be the right thing to do? Would you turn around that day?
In my eyes, of course, it wouldn't. It would never be right to kill a child.
Well, see, there you go. See, there you are.
You don't need a God to determine what's moral, because if your God came to you and said, kill your kids, you'd say, no, that's wrong. Because
I'm saying honestly, I would think that, yeah, I would think it's wrong, but you know, God wouldn't. Well, I take that back. God would just like He did with the ram and all that stuff in the bush and stuff. But
the thing is,
if he would have come to me personally and tell me something like that, of course, I'd do it hands down.
You would kill your kid if God told you to.
Yes, well, definitely.
Okay, then you're beyond hope. You're an immoral person who doesn't understand that you are your own moral authority. In much the same way that your first instinct was to say, this is wrong and I wouldn't do it, why would you ever worship some God that would tell you to do something like that?
But He hasn't told me to do something like that.
He hasn't told you yet. He hasn't told you yet, David, but you just admitted that if he did, you would do it. What you've just said is, if this authority figure that you worship were to tell you to do that, you would do it and think that it was good.
I won't think twice of it. Yes, I would do it.
Well, then you have sacrificed your humanity, your self-respect, your decency, and your moral authority to some being.
We're not here
to
forever,
some
man.
being.
This is only a pit stop. We're not here forever. So if
I would never worship or revere any being that I didn't, you know, I am the ultimate judge of what I consider to be moral and immoral. And any being who perhaps I respect and admire, who comes to me and says, you need to kill your kid, my answer is, you need to go to hell.
Yeah, screw you. Oh, that's not.
You know?
This, David, I should point out, this is not the first Christian caller that we have heard from who has said this.
Not even close.
You try to pin them down on some consistency on this whole idea that morals have to come from a God. God is an absolute authority figure. Okay, well then what if this absolute authority figure told you to do X that you consider to be morally reprehensible? You would be surprised, but he is not the first guy who has said, well then yeah, I do it. And that right there, I think, points to the whole problem of this idea of morality coming from authority. I think I can say pretty conclusively, Christianity has no morality. What Christianity has is obedience to authority.
Yeah.
That's really all it's got. And it has that as a substitute for morality. It simply takes for granted that there's this all-powerful being, all-knowledgeable being, who, because he is omniscient and omnipotent, just would never ask us to do anything bad anyway. This is indicative of the whole intellectual and moral laziness of Christian fundamentalism. You abdicate morality in favor of just obedience to authority.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I think I would agree with you that David, if he were confronted with that situation, probably would not do what he says that he would do. But he is in this sort of feedback loop of confusion that his religious indoctrination has put him into.
Be a real human being. Take responsibility for your actions. Take pride in your accomplishments. Understand that, yeah, it's okay to say, this is wrong. Absolutely, under no circumstances do I find this acceptable. I don't care if you call yourself a god or not. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. And until you break free of that, until you recognize that it's okay to do that, not only okay, it is essential. It is critical to the progress of humanity that people wake up from these delusions where they have sacrificed everything about themselves.
And it always falls back on the same question. Well, then if God told you to do X, which you have already said you think is wrong, would you do it? If you say yes, then morality doesn't really matter to you. You're all about obedience to authority.